Hey guys, welcome to a special edition of the LA Dodger Dog Show. I'm Alan, the LA Dodger Dog. We are part of the Dodger Yard Podcast Network. We have a special guest today. His name is Dr. Colin Tempelis. He is a doctor of physical therapy and certified as a strength and conditioning specialist, which is like a strength coach. Thank you so much, Colin, for being here. Dr. Colin, I should say. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Alan. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Colin is a good friend of mine, and he is a baseball fan as well. And I wanted to have him on because he can tell us a little more or give us more of a deep dive on injuries that happen to our players, like Cody Bellinger and Gavin Lux, for example. So, Colin, I know that when I talked to you, I gave you info about Bellinger. He's got something going on with his leg. Can you break this down for us a bit?
Yeah, so Bellinger, as it's reported, he's on the 10-day DL with a hairline fracture to his fibula. Alan, you can throw that image up if you'd like.
Okay.
So, watching the play, it doesn't really look like there's a ton going on. He kind of gets a little cleat to the outside of his left leg. But if you look at the image here, so in the bottom part of your leg, you have two bones, the tibia and the fibula, and both of them run down from the knee all the way down to the ankle and actually also make up part of the ankle joint. So you see that the fibula kind of runs along the outside of the leg, and with a hairline fracture, with fractures in general, they take 4 to 6 weeks to heal. So given that it's a hairline fracture, he's hopefully looking at the shorter end of that, closer to the 4 weeks. The big thing with this is that a lot of muscles attach to the fibula. So when you contract a muscle, that can kind of pull on the fibula, and if that's not connected well, you're going to be causing extra stress where the fracture site or the break is. A fracture is just the same as a broken bone. So he's already 2 weeks in. I'd imagine that 10-day DL lines up pretty well to get him to about that 4-week mark, and I'm sure they'll be doing imaging pretty frequently, and then obviously before they release him off the 10-day DL.
Now, because it's a stress fracture, is there any surgery at all that's needed for him?
No, so there wouldn't be any surgery. Those, let's say this is your bone normally, if that just kind of separates, it'll connect back on its own.
Okay. That's good to hear.
No surgery needed. They would have identified that, pretty, early on with the initial imaging that, didn't show a fracture. Because if they did need surgery, it would have been a pretty significant one where they put screws in and a rod in there.
Oh, wow.
And that would be a much longer recovery time.
Yeah, no, I mean, we as Dodger fans are thankful that's not necessary for that. So is there any kind of like physical therapy that he needs to do, or is that 4 to 6 weeks usually just closed and like he's already 2 weeks done through it? So another 2 weeks, do you think he's doing physical therapy now for it, and then he's just ready to go in 14 days?
Yeah, I'd imagine he's doing some light exercises with that leg. The other thing is you're going to try to do other things like strengthen, up at the quad or hamstring, if you can do that without putting a lot of stress on the lower part of your leg. And then also up into the hips, and then, everywhere else, the left leg, his arms, core, he's probably doing, as much as he can, and probably pretty close to his normal kind of strengthening exercise that he would do, if he wasn't injured.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I mean, it's not ideal that he's got this going on, but it's a lot better than it could be, I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's good to hear.
And watching the video too, the other thing, he kind of rolled his ankle a little bit.
Yeah.
So you got to be happy that there's not like an ankle sprain, which, can also cause the fracture, but can also tear ligaments, which are they connect bone to bone. And you have the ligaments on the outside of the ankle there. So
it's great to hear that Bellinger will probably be back in 2 weeks or so. But another guy that was out as of today, officially on the IL for 10 days, is Gavin Lux. He is described as soreness on his right wrist. Can you tell us when we should probably expect him back, or what that is?
Yeah, so, with something as general as wrist soreness, it's, in no further detail, it's hard to really know what's going on. But I'd imagine that he has some tendonitis, just the tendons, which connect the muscles to the bone so that you can move your wrist. Those are just kind of a little aggravated. So the big thing is you can throw up that first wrist image.
Okay.
So on the back side of your forearm, these are all the extensor muscles. So they kind of bring your wrist back like that. And then there's several layers. You can see on the image that, the muscle bellies, we call them, are more up here, and then down as you get closer to the wrist, they turn into tendons more so that they can pull back. And that just kind of acts like a string, kind of pulling your wrist back like that.
Okay.
And then if you throw up the next wrist image on the palmar side, that we call it, or the kind of the underside of your wrist, is all the flexor muscle. So that'll kind of come down like this. It's kind of what's snapping when you're throwing a baseball. Obviously wrist muscles are involved in hitting and swinging the bat and getting the wrist to kind of roll over. So, that's probably what's going on. Maybe he just took a few too many swings and that's what's aggravated his wrist. But it's really hard to really get into a ton of detail, with just a general diagnosis of wrist soreness.
It's tough.
I'd imagine, if he's on the 10-day, they're probably doing everything they can. They want to just free up a spot to, to get some younger guys in from the taxi squad. But I wouldn't expect him to be, out more than that. So.
Yeah. Now, is that something that you just put icy hot on it and you're good, or you got to actually work on it?
You got to actually work on it. I'm sure their training staff, I know they have several techniques that they can do to try to break up, whatever scar tissue and increase blood flow to the area, so that can kind of help the healing process along. And, they have all the resources at their disposal. So, I know they're doing a lot of different things and treatment techniques to help them get better.
So another guy who had an injury, but he's back in the lineup as of yesterday, playing against the Padres, was AJ Pollock. He was out with a groin pull as of like 5 or 6 days ago, but again, he was in the lineup as of yesterday. So I'm glad to see him back. But is that something that we should be looking at, or is this a one and done deal? Like, he's great now.
Yeah, so there are a couple injuries that kind of notoriously linger around. One is the hamstring injury, and one is a groin pull. So what happens there is you just have you have muscles kind of attaching at the groin and going down kind of your upper thigh along the inside. And, if one of those muscles just got stretched out a little bit too much, and, that creates the tightness there. So, he should be good, maybe in and out of the lineup a couple times here and there, depending on how he's feeling. But yeah, just be on the lookout for that to kind of linger for the next few weeks, or, hopefully only the next few weeks.
Yeah. So Dave Roberts has some managerial tasks ahead of him in order to make sure that Pollock doesn't re-pull or pull that thing again, or, injures himself again. It's great that we have a deep lineup and a deep roster. We can bring in like Taylor in the outfield, or even McKinstry, some other games. So it's a benefit, and I definitely don't want to see AJ Pollock down. He had a great year last year, so I'm looking forward to that still being the case this year. Dr. Colin Tempelis, thank you so very much. I would love to have you back on if there are any other Dodger injuries. I hope there aren't, but we are great friends, and I want to see you more. So let's see what happens.
Yeah. Anytime. I'd love to be back.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Of course. See you, Alan.